When you think of American culture, what first comes to mind? Hollywood movies, maybe? Fast food? Well, beyond all the cliches, there's this really complex set of unwritten rules that shapes everything, from how business deals get done to just simple, everyday conversations. And if you don't know them, things can go sideways fast.
So, get this, a $50 million deal, completely up in smoke. And why? Not because the numbers were wrong or the market shifted, but because someone broke the unspoken rules. This story isn't just some crazy anecdote. It's a perfect, high-stakes example of what can happen when you don't understand the culture. So that's the big question we're going to tackle here. What are these invisible lines and subtle cues? What are the core values that are really driving the way Americans think and act? Let's try to decode that cultural operating system together.
Okay, so where do we even begin? Well, it pretty much all starts with one huge, powerful idea: individualism. And this isn't just some personality trait, it's really the core code that influences almost every single part of American life.
57%. What do you think that represents? Well, according to a Pew Research survey, that's the percentage of Americans who do not believe that success is determined by forces outside their control. In other words, a solid majority feels like they're the captain of their own ship. And that's a higher percentage than in any European country they polled.
And this belief that you control your own destiny is directly connected to how much value is placed on hard work. I mean, look at this. An incredible 73% of Americans say hard work is very important for getting ahead. Now, compare that to the median in Europe. It's just 35%. That's a huge difference. It really shows you a fundamental gap in what people think is the engine for success.
And that difference in belief totally shapes what society prioritizes. In the US, the big emphasis is on individual liberty, the freedom for people to go after their goals with as little interference as possible. But in a lot of Europe, the priority is more on the state providing a strong safety net, making sure that nobody falls through the cracks. They're just two very different approaches to how a society should work.
This focus on self-reliance leads right into this ideal of independence. From a really young age, there's this cultural expectation that you're going to stand on your own 2 feet. Moving out, going to college far away from home, becoming financially independent, these aren't just things people hope to do. For a lot of folks, they're seen as these essential steps into adulthood. So, if individualism is the core code, then the American workplace is where that code runs 24/7. And this is where knowing those unwritten rules becomes absolutely critical if you want to succeed.
You can see these deep cultural differences in something as simple as starting a meeting. When an American says, "Let's get started right on time," they're not just being picky. It's a direct signal about valuing efficiency and respecting everyone's time. Time is treated like a resource you can't get back, so you don't waste. And beyond just being on time, you've got this whole coded language in American business. You have to learn to read between the lines. If you hear someone say, "Let's table this," it probably means this topic is going nowhere. "Let's take this offline" is a nice way of saying this should be discussed with fewer people. And my personal favorite, "That's an interesting perspective," can very often be the most polite way of saying, "I do not agree with you at all."
Even networking, which seems like it should be all social and casual, often follows this very clear, purposeful structure. It's not just random chatting, it's a process. You start with a little small talk to build a quick rapport, then you exchange what you do professionally. And then, and this is the important part, you figure out if there's a reason to connect again and agree to follow up. It's relationship building, but with a goal in mind.
All right, so we've looked at the internal code driving the culture. But what happens when we flip the script? How do all these values and behaviors look from the outside? This is where we get into mirrors and stereotypes.
And this is where things get really interesting, because it's all about perspective. What an American sees as being hardworking can easily look like being a workaholic to someone else. That classic American optimism, sometimes it can come across as arrogance, and a sense of generosity can get twisted into a stereotype of being materialistic. They're often just two different sides of the very same cultural coin.
But here's maybe the most important unwritten rule of them all. It is a huge mistake to think of America as just one single thing. It is absolutely not a monolith, not even close.
I mean, politics is a perfect example of this diversity. Just look at this breakdown of the 2016 presidential vote by race. While you see some groups with very strong loyalties to one party, like the high level of support for Democrats among black voters, other groups, like white and Hispanic voters, are much more divided. It just proves there's no single American experience or point of view.
And all this internal diversity is just one piece of a much bigger story, because America is a country that's constantly in the middle of some pretty profound cultural shifts. You can really see this evolution clearly when you look at attitudes about work. The old culture where putting in crazy long hours was seen as a badge of honor is definitely being challenged. Today, there's a much bigger conversation happening around work-life balance and mental health. And looking ahead, it seems like wellness is becoming a non-negotiable, something people see as a necessary investment in themselves, not a luxury.
So, this new American normal is really being shaped by a few major trends. You've got the whole digital transformation, making things like remote work and paying with your phone totally normal. The country is more diverse and multicultural than it's ever been. And in terms of the economy, consumers are really shifting their focus toward brands that offer obvious, clear value and affordability.
And that brings us to our final thought. You have this deep-rooted cultural code of individualism that's now colliding with incredible diversity and disruptive technology. It's a culture in motion. So the question I'll leave you with is this: as all these powerful forces meet, which version of America is going to come out on the other side?